Hi everyone, my name is Nick. I'm a trader from the UK. I've been trading for like 4 or 5 years and haven't really had any success over that time. And then recently I felt like I've turned a little bit of a corner and seen results starting to come my way a bit. So I thought I'd start to document my journey a little bit and just share kind of where I'm hoping to go, and hopefully if I am successful, can inspire a few others, given that I, for a long time, was a losing trader. And yeah, um, I'm just going to do a recap on the trades I took today. I had a really good day today. I made um, realized $543.55. I've still got a small position open that I'll swing, and yeah, I'll go through. I'll start out by just going through the watch list of stocks that I was most focused on. Um, my main watch was Nvts. Thought process here was that we had a bit of a breakout day into the close yesterday. I honestly don't know whether it was news or a short squeeze or whatever. And my approach with these stocks has been to wait until we have a clear breakout day and then look to be bullish for a continuation move. Um, Ideally, wait for shorts to get trapped, and then when they start to squeeze, it might lead to bigger shorts getting squeezed and sort of like ends up being a bit of a domino effect. I was also watching Ppsi for a short. This one had a massive day a few days ago. We've had a few days just sort of like inside. There was a short opportunity on it yesterday, which I missed, and they were gapping up. So the plan was just to wait and see if the longs could keep control of the stock, or if at some point it rolled over and then look for a short entry. I was also watching Rivn, which IPO'd yesterday. The thought process here was that after an IPO, or in the days after an IPO, the high and low are really clearly defined, and there's going to be a lot of volume at those levels, which makes it more likely to break out. So the idea is to look at this for a breakout through the all-time highs. And then the final main watch was Pfizer. Um, this stock, I have a list of stocks here which typically do the highest volume and do a very good range. I think they might be the highest range. And what I do is I look at these stocks, and you've got sort of like your typical Nvidias, AMC, GME, MU, Apple, Tesla, all the sort of like the current big names that are trading high volume, doing a lot of movement, and a lot of eyes are on. And what I like to see with these is either a really clearly defined level that when it breaks, I would say that the majority of the market is looking to go long, or for a recent level to have broken, confirming that longs are in control, to look for continued strength to catch the second day move. So the trades that I took, the first one was on Pfizer. What I'll do is I'll bring over the executions as well in a minute. Essentially, what I saw with Pfizer is that the previous day's high was around about this 49.20 area. It set up a high of day at the open, and pre-market highs were also in this area. And I decided that I would just take a fairly standard open range break on this. Typically, what I see is that if you have a really clear key level from the daily chart and you have a setup around that, it has quite a high percentage of giving some follow through, and then it just relies on how strong it is throughout the day as to whether it goes on to make a big trade or not. So I jumped in this one right here, and my initial risk was down to around about, I was going to give it a tiny little bit of room under 49, so I estimate I probably had around 35 cent risk. Because it's earlier in the day than I like to take trades, and it's also a setup that I don't love taking massive, like my absolute full size on straight away, because opening range breaks can be quite choppy. You haven't got very much chart data to work off of. I only took 250 shares of this, risking probably around 75 to $80, which is the sort of like not quite my max risk, but close to it. Um, and the thought process getting in was that if we do catch momentum, we do set up a strong day, we should be able to get to the $50 mark. That was sort of like my first target. Whereas if the trade works out, it should get to $50. So it obviously broke out a little bit, came back, held the initial high of day, held VWAP, put in a bit of a fake out. And once we saw this 49.60 break, I pretty much moved my stop to, it wasn't quite break even, but I only had about 10 cent risk on the trade. So I'd cut my risk down by 2/3. Um, and then once we broke over that and showed that we had enough buying power to get through it, I moved my stop pretty much to break even. So I was in the trade for quite a while, which is common on these for me. Once we'd got sort of about an hour into the trade, just under, I had no risk on it, and it was then a case of seeing how far it could go. Um, my first exit was on the break of $50. Initially, I was thinking I'll see what it does at 50. I put an order out of 50.24, just hoping that it would get filled. It did. So that was nice on this spike here. My next target was going to be 50.75, but when we took out the high of day, rejected 50.50, and then rejected it again, I decided to take another, essentially a quarter of my original position out, just because I figured I was already up over a point on the trade when I was risking a maximum of 30 cent, which is really good risk rewards. I could lock in 3/4 of my position, and then the rest I didn't have to worry about giving profit back, so I'd already locked in quite a bit. So I took half off, like I said, in here, another quarter here, and I'm holding a quarter overnight. And just to confirm those as the entries, you can see I got in, use this, I got in here, arrow, and then my first exit was here, second exit here, and I'm holding a quarter overnight. And the profit I have open on that position, because obviously it's not closed yet, I've locked in $188 on it, and I'm holding 60 shares overnight. So hopefully that will continue higher tomorrow. The main thing with this was the reason I was bullish on it always comes back to the big picture. The main thing that I've learned in the last year or so is that big picture is key. If you are in a trade where the daily chart is on your side for a bigger move. So in this instance, we've got a breakout where the second it's a day after it started to break out. When the daily chart is on your side, there's a much higher probability of taking a winning trade, and there's also a higher probability of that trade being a bigger winning trade. So my focus always goes back to the daily chart for that. Second trade I took was on Nvts. This one I feel like I got a little bit fortunate on, but it was again because the daily chart is so strong, because we potentially have some short straps, and especially when we look at the intraday, what happens, this again, I was on the right side of the daily chart, which just improves the win percentage. So at the open, this sold off, and this is exactly what I wanted to see it do. I really wanted to see sort of like an opening range break down and traps on shorts, and I figured that this whole area in here, when we took out the previous close and some selling pressure, what I was looking for essentially was a sign that shorts would get involved. And as soon as shorts get involved, if it does come back up to that high of day, there's a pretty good chance it's going to break out. I would say that the only thing that I didn't love with this when I look back at it was the fact that it's doing such little volume. The market was quite quiet today, so there might not be as many eyes on this kind of play. And I feel like I might have gone a little bit early. So the first entry I got was when it broke over 1680. I didn't take very big size. I only took a couple of hundred shares, and I was risking probably like $50, and that's only about half of my maximum risk. The reason I took smaller size was, again, like I recognized that it was a little bit more of a, I wouldn't necessarily say gambly type trade, but there was probably a little bit more like variance. There's probably a lower win percentage, given that I was getting in the hope that more longs would pile in a little bit. Um, So I went smaller size. I was risking down to this consolidation period. Essentially, I was getting in saying if shorts are going to uh, are in this and they're going to start getting out of it here. So that's what I was looking for. We did get a fairly strong move to the high of day, and we actually, at this point, were trading okay volume. We held below the high of day, and when we broke, I added into the position around about 150 shares. And this is where I got incredibly lucky because my new stop was 1674, and I use hard stops. So, you know, market makers could hunt it, or however you want to feel about that. It made a low of 1675, and fortunately, I wasn't taken out. Normally, in this on this type of trade, I would give it more room, but with this, it was a little bit whippy. The spreads got a little bit wide. I was afraid of slippage, and also, given that it's taken out this consolidation period, took out high of day, I wanted to be quite tight of it because it should be a case of it should now go. Um, I was then in the trade for a really long time, and these are never super fun to be in, even though it was uptrending the whole time. Because my average was 1697, it did have these multiple dips where I was sort of like, I wouldn't say anywhere like threatening my maximum loss or anything, but I realized that if we did get a quick dump, there could be slippage, which could cost me pretty much at that point my full risk. Because once I added in here, I had around about $100 risk. But it did end up moving higher. I sold my first half, regrettably, at the time, in and around here. I really want to see this break 1780 and maybe take out 18 and squeeze. And because I built such a large position, the potential on it I thought was absolutely massive. So I was really holding out for that. But we took out 1750, we took out this resistance across here, and when we failed to really push higher, and we tried a couple of times, as soon as I saw weakness, I got out. I can't remember exactly where it was. It might have been on that one there. We'll check in a second um, on the execution chart. And yeah, it was fine. I locked in an okay amount on that. And then when it pushed and it took out that all-time high essentially, again, I was looking for a move higher, and when we failed to get that, I saw that as a worrying sign, given that this is the point where the short should be squeezing. So my theory's kind of gone at this point. So I took another chunk of my position out in the 1770s, and then the final position, I decided not to swing this one because it's a little bit more volatile. It's because of the fluffy nature of the news behind a lot of these sort of stocks and the way they trade, this could gap down 4 points and ruin a really good day. So I ended up taking the rest off pretty much into the close a little bit before then actually. And in terms of the executions, this was the first 200 here, adding 150 here, selling 175 here. I think I sold 90 here, and then the final 85 just in here. So again, a really solid trade. I think this was probably my most fortunate trade of the day, given that it wasn't um, maybe wasn't the best place to get in. But I made $214. The max risk was probably around like 85 to 90 bucks or so. And on all of these, I always think like the average risk is normally about 2/3 of my maximum risk. So on this one, the average risk might have only been like $60 or $70. So around about a 3-to-1, which is pretty good. Um, actually the last trade I took on day, which was the last good one, then we'll show you the couple of tiny scalps I tried, was on Ppsi. So looking back at it daily, we also had this big day, couple of red days, and we gapped up today and was doing pretty big volume pre-market. What I wanted to see in this was a rejection of ideally a previous level, like a fake out. So in an ideal world, I would have been looking for this to sort of come up here, maybe do something like this, get slammed down, and then short, expecting to come down like that. That's kind of what I was looking for, that kind of pattern there. We didn't get that initially, and I stopped watching it so actively. And fortunately enough, one of my trading friends just mentioned that Ppsi had sold off pretty hard suddenly. And I took a look, and what I saw was this really nice false breakout. big selling, suggesting that the shorts have taken control back. And I was then looking for an entry into VWAP, and I missed this initial area in here just because I didn't feel like it gave enough room. And at the time, I was like, I'm already in a couple of positions. I don't really want to add too much risk on to today because I feel like those two trades have already the PF E1, although in line with my strategy, is a lower win percentage trades. My Nvts I felt wasn't my best execution, so I didn't really want to begin increasing my my risk on the day. When it pulled back, I realized I probably missed it. I threw out some I got the borrows and threw out some orders and ended up getting filled at 904, which is pretty much the top of this move here. And funnily enough, whilst I was watching MVTS quite intently because it began having some moves, it sold out real harsh. And my rule is once it takes out the low here, I will move the stop to pretty much the last high above VWAP. So I moved the stop to around about 915. And as soon as it then made the next support that clearly broke, which would have been here, the sort of like 820, once this broke, I had again a risk-free trade. My covers on this probably weren't as good as they could have been. My first one was down in here. I wanted to try to get it to break the low of day and to catch this wash here, but normally it's an area I like to add in at, and it already felt like it given such a big move. I was up almost a point on a position where the risk was probably around about 50 to 60 cent. So it's already up around 2 to 1. It had come from such a height. I mean, the high of day was over 10, so it had already given back 2 points, which is a 20% move, which is substantial. And I was very wary that there might be a lot of shorts getting out of it here, so I wanted to lock in some gains rather than add into the position. Had I added in, like, I'd have made a bit more, but nothing crazy, so it's not the end of the world. So it took some out around 811 when it failed to break through 8. I then got a really good second cover at 760 essentially. And then I got a final little piece out pretty much as we were going into sort of like the close. I just put in a range order and got caught on one of these wicks, which is really nice. Just to show the executions, you can see we've got short into this. Well, this is VWAP including pre-market data. VWAP without is a bit higher up, but that's the initial short. I took 150 shares of this one. First cover was down here. Put this on so it's easier. First cover was here. Second cover, like I said, was really, I got very, very lucky with it. And then my final cover, again, got caught on this wick. So yeah, and again, it all comes back on this, the daily as well. The reason I'm able to hold these trades so much longer than I would have used to is because on the daily chart, we know that this stock has had a history of big spikes up, coming all the way back, big spike up, and eventually giving it all back. Even smaller spikes, big spike up, gave it all back. Big spike up, gave it back. So there's a higher probability that it's going to come down once the backside is in. There's not really a reason to start covering until we're getting to some targets. So that was really good trades. And then the only other trades I took was on RIVN. This one was a little bit disappointing. I missed my initial plan, which was 113 entry. What I loved with this is, again, just like with NVTS, we took out this low, trapped some shorts in. We've also got like the highest volume bar pretty much other than the open of the morning. So lots of shorts involved in this one. I know that there was quite a lot of people who were just saying this should just sell off and it's not worth anything, and etc. And whenever I pick up that kind of vibe, I'm always looking for a point where shorts are trapped. I don't go into any of these with a predetermined bias. I always look at the case of I'm waiting for either a hype to move a stock higher and trapped longs, or for people to jump in too early, be a bit too bold with their prediction, and then if it doesn't work out, where they're going to get, where they're going to, essentially when they're trapped, where they're going to start getting out. So unfortunately, I left the room for like 15 minutes, and during that time, it set up really nicely to break out this 113. The reason I liked it is we have a predetermined sort of like tag here and here and here. Combine that with the fact that we've had shorts trapped in here, possibly even here, where it took out the 50 EMA on quite aggressive selling. That for me is a very good indicator that when it takes out 113, there's a high probability that that's where the shorts are going to be stopping out at. You're going to get some buying coming in. That's then going to encourage more longs to come in. it takes out high of day, more shorts are going to get out, and you're going to get that sort of like domino effect of a short squeeze. So it was unfortunate. The ideal entry would have been to get in at 113, selling into here, and then holding some for this. I got a little bit of revenge tradey here, and I ended up taking a couple of longs, once in there, stopped out, and then again in here and stopped out. And they really weren't very big losses at all. I only took 10 shares. I recognized that this is a bit of a casino play, I think is what I called it in the moment. And you can see that I was just trying to catch a potential move. And I wasn't looking for very much. I got in at like 119 and just thought if we can push to 123, then I'll lock it in. It pulled back and then I tried it again. And yeah, a couple of not great trades, but I took 10 shares on them. And as a result, the loss really wasn't all that big. So I'll bring over my P&L screen. So yes, this is my portfolio. Ppsi, I made $175.78 on it. Nvts made 214 on it. The two very small bad scalps on Rivn, and I still have PFE open. 60 shares still in that. I have realized 188 in that, and unrealized currently is around about $56, which means that on the total on the day was $543.55 locked in, and those $56 that hopefully, if Pfizer can bring out some really well-timed good news, turn into even more. So that was the trade recap on today. Yeah, essentially just gonna document this journey a little bit, just share the trades I make. I love talking trading, so yeah, if anyone has any questions or just wants to chat trading, just put it in the comments below, and yeah, hopefully we can make something of this.